Welcome to Norse Code, the #1 podcast for your Minnesota Vikings. The Twins finish May with 20 wins. The Vikings make public peace with Adrian Peterson. And most importantly, I have returned to the big chair in the bedroom bunker control center to stake my rightful claim as Warden of the North and host of this podcast. For I am Dusty O'Connell.
Who says Norse Code like that? That was weird. Welcome to Norse Code.
It's Norse Code.
No, don't do it again. That was perfect. All right, go Twins.
You're weird. You're also the editor of Vikings Territory and a contributor to the Daily Norseman and a variety of other blogs around the internet. You are Arif Hassan. How you doing, Arif?
I'm good. I'm sorry I stepped on the intro. That's basically the only meaningful thing you do in this podcast. So that was really rude of me.
We only do one take here. We don't believe in recuts. So I guess on with the show.
A bald lie.
Well, I know. I say as I'm thinking about the first thing I'm going to cut. So Adrian Peterson managed to monopolize our time and our hearts once again, and he will lead the show this week, hopefully for the last time until he starts breaking his own running back records, I guess. Then I guess we can revisit some of the position battles that we talked about, kind of going on in OTAs. Maybe not so much going on in OTAs, but, as OTAs happen. And we've got an excellent mailbag lined up for you as well this week. All the usual suspects, except for Kyle, thankfully.
Oh, thank God.
Have turned up in our mailbag with a plethora of excellent Vikings-related questions and some pretty good, I guess, -1 off-topic questions as well. So let's get to it. Well, actually, before we do that, one very important thing to note, and that is to say thanks to you, the listener. Thank you, listener. You are the reason that we continue to put out this show week after week for what is actually rapidly approaching 2 calendar years.
Oh my God.
Only like 3 weeks away. Isn't that crazy? Yeah. But not only that, you grace us with your ear presence, but also your money, which we appreciate very greatly. And this week we have 2 new donors. Actually, 1 recurring donor and 1 new donor. Matt Nelson at nmatt71, a regular contributor to the mailbag and a back and forther with us on Twitter, puts his money where his mouth is from Fort Dix, New Jersey. And for that, Matt, we are very grateful. Thank you so much. As well as Ann Burmaster of Minneapolis, Minnesota, first-time donor and the rare female donor. You don't see too many of those, even though we know there are a lot of excellent female football fans out there, especially for the Vikings. I mean, we're so blessed to have such a diverse team of bloggers and people of interest who kind of all work around each other. Di Murphy, Lindsey Young. Those are the first 2 that come to mind, but I'm sure there are.
This is the only 2 you can think of. There's also Skullgirl at the Daily Norseman. Where this podcast gets posted.
Yes.
All right. Yeah. So I suppose we could lead with Adrian Peterson. That makes sense to me.
So the one thing that kind of permeates everybody's opinion of this whole mess, to me, whether you talk to Peterson, whether you talk to the Vikings, whether you talk to somebody in the league, whether you talk to a fan, anybody in the media, it's that other people, are handling this situation very badly.
What do you mean by other people? People who are not us? Because, yeah, obviously.
Well, yeah, exactly. And it makes some more sense for some of us than others. But, we believe that, many people are handling the situation badly, possibly even everybody involved. Adrian Peterson believes that, the team and the union are not doing enough to defend him from the league. The team feels like the league was jerking them around. Everybody's pointing fingers at everybody else. A lot of bad handling going on.
The shocking answer is that they're all right about them all being wrong. Just incredible.
Well, and I feel like we were just descending downward in this spiral of blaming and finger pointing and just unforced errors. But on Tuesday, Mike Zimmer and Adrian Peterson held a press conference at Winter Park that was just it was just like a cannon fusillade of right things saying.
I mean,
Like,
yeah. No, I mean, there's a bunch of things that were said that were right. I think that if Peterson, so I think that the way that Peterson talked about apologizing, I think if he didn't do that the way he did, and I think if there maybe like a couple of other things that had gone just a little differently, that his opening statement, or not opening statement, but sort of opening salvo of, it's good to see you guys in here. It's good to see some familiar faces. Some not so much. I feel like that would have gotten a little bit more play, especially on talk radio. Um, I mean, yeah, no, a lot of the right things were said. I know there were a couple of people who were a little upset that Adrian Peterson. This sounds awful to say, right? Only apologized to his son. But no, if a lot of people thought that he should have apologized to a bunch of people.
mostly to them
Well,
personally.
yeah, them personally, because sports fans are entitled, and why shouldn't they be? Uh, they pay bills and things. They should totally feel entitled.
Hey,
Uh,
the residents of Minneapolis, such as the lovely Ann Burmaster, are paying for that stadium the Vikings are gonna play in. Like,
it's not just the residents of Minneapolis. The residents of Minneapolis are paying for it twice. The state of Minnesota, the residents of Minnesota are paying for it once, but if you live in Minneapolis, you get another bill. So, double
there you
apologies
go.
to Minneapolis residents.
Exactly,
Adrian
you get
Peterson.
two handwritten notes.
And I think there were like sort of some other stuff, but I think there's like I mean there's all sorts of stuff where you could be like, I can't believe he said that, and he sounds really tone deaf, like where he was like, I'm not the victim, my son is, but man, I can't believe you all treated me like that. That was pretty awful, like that sort of stuff. Yeah, everyone just glossed over it because, man, this is so tiring. I think we're done. I think is why everyone didn't like care about a lot of the stuff that he said. And a really good
do we
story
do we
about
all
Mike
have
Zimmer.
outrage fatigue?
Yeah,
Are we just all wiped out from being like, wow, can he really, like, does he really think that he's the victim? Like, does he not get that the team has every right to be upset at him? Like,
yeah, no, and I think people are just like, you know what? Yeah, that's all. He's always thought that. Whatever. He's on the team. He's running the ball. Whatever. I think if we're like another team that didn't generally generate controversy, like I don't know, the San Diego Chargers, I think people would jump on that a little bit more. But I think for the Vikings, there's just been so much drama and like crap the fan base has gone through that they were just like, no, this is over. This is definitively over. There's no question about this. So let's stop. And then we stopped, and then we got to talk about how good of a coach Mike Zimmer is.
yay! It seemed like you and James and almost everybody else were like pessimistic about the chances of this having like a positive ending, I guess, and that
But yeah, we
makes
put
sense.
it in the last mailbag. We were like, there's zero chance that this ends positively. That's
Well, yeah,
put it out there.
exactly. And I mean, Peterson comes out there and he says, he's like, yeah, what it really came down to was, once I was back in the building, it was just like I missed it so much. And basically, paraphrasing, he says, I couldn't imagine, life without playing football. So rather than, show that I'm not bluffing when the team calls my bluff and just like retiring out of spite, I'm going to do the only thing that I really have ever done in my adult life and been like the best in possibly the world at, and that's play football. I mean, do you take him at his word on that, or is that just something that he said because they finally got a burly enough PR person to just sit everybody down and be like, you were going to say this and exactly this, and everything is going to be fine.
I've met the Vikings PR staff. Burly is not a word I would use to describe any of them. No, I think there's a lot of things at stake here. A lot of people, I think, are saying, "Well, no, it's all about the money," and I think that sort of cynicism is something that we respect a lot in Norse code. But I think that for Peterson as an individual in particular, it's always more than that. I think that when he says, "I just wanted to get back and play football because I play football. That is my identity as a person." I think that actually did play a big part of it. I think that he was seriously considering spite retirement. It's not like unprecedented. I mean, we've seen spite retirements in football before. I mean, there's Carson Palmer, there's Barry Sanders. I mean, it's happened, right? Um, and I guess Carson Palmer unretired. That worked out really well for him, actually. But yeah, it happens, and I think Peterson was considering being another member of the Spite Retirement Club, and I think that was something that was a consideration because the way that he thinks about the situation actually does have less to do with money and much more to do with how he feels he's being treated. For example, I think the guaranteed money thing. I think he thinks it's unlikely the Vikings are going to cut him in the final year of his contract when he's earning $17 million. I don't think he's that concerned about the security of his contract. And I'm not saying he's not concerned. I'm saying that relative to how other people are interpreting the situation, I think that the concern matters less for him than what some people would call the gesture of respect that it would mean to guarantee his contract. I think that that's a big deal to him, loyalty and things like that, which is why conversations with people like Mike Zimmer are really important. Adrian Peterson pointed to Mike Zimmer as a really significant factor in returning, and I think that that's a big deal too because he was initially against the Vikings firing Leslie Frazier, and then he changed his mind after one meeting with Mike Zimmer, and that's the two Mike Zimmer is, the two Adrian Peterson is, and he cares a lot about these relationships. So I think that all of those things played a pretty significant role, as well as the fact that he has formed his identity around, as many high-level football players do, formed his identity around being a football player, and it's just kind of difficult to imagine not being a football player.
Well, thank goodness we don't have to live in a world where Adrian Peterson is not a football player.
I mean, that world is not too far away.
Well, at least it doesn't happen. At least it doesn't have to happen out of spite.
That's true.
That would have been just a very Minnesota thing to happen, I think.
Also
but
very true.
what a colossal waste that would have been. And I mean, now we can all finally sigh and forget this ever happened. I mean, like we can't do that, right?
Yeah, probably.
How many rushing touchdowns will it take before we all forget? 6, 7,
I think, but
1.
well, it depends on when they happen, right? If it's 6 by the end of the season, we're all pretty pissed.
If all 6 come in week 14 and later, then yeah, no, we're not forgetting any of this ever.
Yeah. If it's 6 in the first 6 weeks, yeah, I think everyone's like basically
What if
pretty happy.
what if he breaks a long run and scores the first touchdown of the season in the first game? Do we just immediately forgive him then? Like, do we just run back to him?
Like how he started the 2013 season?
Exactly.
Yeah, basically.
If he just thunder strikes the field and
Yeah, well, okay. So one note about this though, there's a lot of people on Twitter. I think at the Daily Norseman I've seen this. There's a lot of people who are just like, hey, so all of you people said that you would not welcome Adrian Peterson back, that you would not cheer him on the field. I don't believe you. I'm keeping a list. Everyone said they would not cheer for him because he beat a kid, which is actually not that preposterous a reason not to like cheer for someone. I think that that's actually a fairly sane reason not to cheer for someone. And then I think if a lot of those people who said that they wouldn't cheer for him do end up cheering for him or cheer for the things that happened with him on the field, I don't necessarily think that that's contradictory or being dishonest. I think that's just being human. I think that there exists a possibility that a human can feel disgusted by a person, and that when that person engages in a very superhuman effort to accomplish a goal you've been yearning for, that disgust can either lessen or go away. I think that's just so true. I think that you can think one thing at one point in a year, and then 6 months removed, think another thing. I think that's super emblematic of being a human. So I have no problem with people who said they'd be disgusted with him and then cheering for him.
I engage in that behavior every time I vote for Congress.
Right? Yeah, no, this is virtually no difference. Every time I overeat, actually. So,
which is often during Vikings games.
Yeah, right. I'll never eat another pizza again. Are you sure, Arif? Shut up. You don't know me.
Oh, there's another pizza? Well, in that case.
This happened tonight. It wasn't me. It was my girlfriend's dad. We just finished eating like a bunch of food, and he was like, "I am so full. Ugh, I hate food." And the waitress comes around. And she's like, "Who wants dessert?" And he was like, "Not me. Can't do dessert." And my girlfriend and I look at each other and we're like, well, I mean, we might be able to do. What are the desserts? And she lists the desserts. And, my girlfriend and I look at each other trying to negotiate what we want without saying anything, which is really stupid, but we do this all the time. We're like, I don't know, do I want this? And then he immediately goes, give me the creme brulee. Like, it just happened. So I can't see why
Wow.
it wouldn't happen 6 months apart for what is fundamentally an emotional activity, watching football.
I'd say it's practically guaranteed.
Practically guaranteed. Like Joe Namath's Super Bowl.
I can guarantee you anything you want. That's the easy part.
Yeah, I also wrote an article about Adrian Peterson and his impact on the offense because that is an article you can write because he wasn't in the offense last year. And it turns out the conclusion is that if he runs good, that is good.
Yeah, didn't we, in a very non-scientific way, decide that he's probably worth one, maybe two wins, just himself to the Vikings?
Yeah, that just
If
seems like so. I think when we talked about this too, we were just like, that seems like too much. But
that can't.
it's just so weird not to think of it that way.
Well, I mean, well, and especially for me, but it's just like he is such. And I mean, yeah, the league plays a little differently than it did 2 years ago. Last time he was in it, and probably play a little bit more, uh, pass heavy than even he was accustomed to, or than we saw a year ago. But all that aside, he's just so like he changes the field. He changes the way that every team plays when he's out there.
He is
And
good, and that is good. It's
yes,
difficult, right? So there's 16 games in the season, I think, and and, uh, and there's functionally 24 to 26 impact players on the team. So to say that any player aside from the quarterback is worth a win seems like a very large statement to make. But I think that is true for Peterson.
if it's true about anyone who is not a quarterback, it damn well better be true for him.
It better be.
I would
What
like.
happens if it's not? What do you mean
I
better?
would like. I would like to hear
Who are
who
you
else.
threatening?
I. I guess anyone that disagrees with me.
Okay.
You will find me later on Twitter. My handle is at Dusty O'Connell. I haven't had to block anyone in a while.
It better be, or I'll block you when you harass me.
Yeah, exactly. I don't have to listen to your wrong opinion.
Listen to us at Norse Code. You can find us on iTunes.
Yeah, exactly. Speaking of wrong opinions, you were listening to Norse Code, number one podcast for your Minnesota Vikings. So OTAs continue. About halfway finished, I believe the fifth OTA was Tuesday.
Yeah, it's about halfway finished.
There are some fun videos on Vikings.com of highlights of OTAs, and I say that they are fun in the sense that they are fun if you enjoy watching large men exercise.
I mean, that's kind of what the podcast is about. I mean,
But not,
all the exercise that they engage in that we talk about is like directed towards a specific goal with other people who are similarly exercising, trying to prevent them from that goal. So it is a fundamentally different exercise activity. But let's not like split hairs.
no, well, in this case, I feel like we should split hairs because this is like conditioning, and like simple drills. There are some cool shots of an undefended Teddy throwing completed passes 10 yards down the field or whatever. Just if you're into smash cuts of conditioning drills, check out Vikings.com. They got lots of them.
They
You
do.
can easily spend 25 minutes watching smash cut calisthenics.
That's kind of sad. But they have a good videographer. They have an even better photographer, whose name I just forgot. Now I feel like an asshole. He has great shots, though. He had great shots from OTAs last year. He's got some good pictures from this year. I actually really enjoy the photography he's produced.
Vikings.com also has some interviews with the participants at OTAs, mostly veterans. Um, the one that I liked the most was Phil Lodeholt kind of circumspectly praising TJ Clemmings,
Yeah, I
who's
saw that
been
video. I mean, it was just like, yeah, no, I like him.
he's like, no, if he sticks with it and he figures his stuff out, he'll be good.
Yeah, it was
Which
when I was watching it, I was wondering if and I'm not watching because like I want like some drama if this doesn't happen. But I wanted to see if he was going to say something that would, if you were an asshole, would sound like meaningful drama if TJ Clemmings doesn't win the position. Like if he had said something along the lines of, "No, I think he is, our best option at right guard," or maybe not, maybe in so many words, but something along those lines, and it turns
Like
out
he'd do okay playing guard. Like the implication is that he would not make a very good tackle.
yeah, or something, right? Not because I wanted to spring this, but because I wanted to see how definitive his statements were about Clemmings. And it was just like, yeah, no, he should work and he's good, and I like his work ethic, and he is good. And so,
He is good, and that is good.
yeah, it is good that a teammate of mine is good. He should continue to work hard like all teammates should. um, so there's, I mean, there's like nothing. I think it was softer praise than most, if you will, when it comes to that. Which I'm not saying is bad about Clemmings. I think it speaks not to Clemmings's talent or anything like that, but to the Vikings' willingness to put him there. Like I think that they're not as settled with Clemmings at right guard as a lot of the media seem to make it seem. And I'm not saying the media is saying right guard is settled. I'm saying the way that they're reporting the right guard situation creates an aura of Clemmings has this job and it's his to lose. So you know what I mean?
Yeah, which I mean, given that this is the first time he's like really put cleats on as a Viking, that strikes me as a little premature. But slow news cycles being what they are, I guess you go with you go with what you see and interpret on the ground. I mean, if Chris Tomasin can infer like contract negotiation
That was
details
great.
from a tweet, then there's all manner of information that can be implied that we can infer.
I like that literally no one else had that interpretation of that tweet. And then he said it, and I was like, man, I think he's talking about Greg Jennings. And Darren Wolfson was like, yeah, I think he's talking about Greg Jennings or Chad Greenway. And then Wolfson and Wenzel and Gessling all went to their sources, and they were like, yeah, he was definitely talking about Jennings or Greenway. That was great.
It's not always all about AP. It's not always.
Even when AP is the one who was ranting.
It's not because even he knows it's not always all about him. Eric Kendricks was has always kind of been a person to watch. We talked on the draft review about what an excellent pickup he could potentially be for the Vikings, and you mentioned him last week as somebody to watch. And there are also a few videos on Vikings.com of other players praising him for being good, a good player doing well.
Yeah, I think I haven't watched like all the videos on Kendricks at Vikings.com. In fact, I believe I've only watched one player interview where they've mentioned Kendricks from OTAs. But I mean, I feel like that is a little bit more settled in terms of the way the players are approaching that question. Because Phil Lodeholtz, on Clemmings was like, well, if he sticks with it, good things will happen. Whereas I think the interview I watched was more along the lines of, yes, he's going to make a good linebacker for this team probably this year. Like it seemed much more like that. You know what I mean? Which isn't to say we should read too much into it, so much as this seems to be how the Vikings are transmitting this information to the players, and the players are sort of transmitting that information, maybe inadvertently to the rest of the world in these interviews. If I recall correctly, Kendricks has mostly still been running with the second team. I mean, even Harrison Smith, his rookie year, he was running with the second team in OTAs before he earned first team reps in training camp, which seemed to be the plan all along anyway. Matt Khalil is probably one of the only rookies that started out on the first team and then stayed there. I think even Anthony Barr, for a very, very short period of time, was on the second team. He moved up faster than I guess Kendricks, but I wouldn't read too much in the fact that Kendricks is at the second team. I think they're just trying to figure out what's happening with Cole and Greenway and maybe which one of them they want, and if they want one of them, where they want him at middle linebacker or weak side linebacker, given that Cole had a pretty phenomenal game at weak side linebacker um, at the end of the season. So I think they're just trying to figure that out, and then they're going to put Kendricks in the other spot, basically. And then they're going to figure out between that linebacker and Kendricks whether or not that distribution of spots makes sense or whether or not they should flip them. That sort of thing. That's my feeling on it.
I don't want to belabor OTAs too much,
There's
but
nothing else to report on. Go away.
looking at looking at four rookies engaged in position battles: Anton Exum, Eric Hendricks, Trey Waynes, and TJ Clemmings.
Exum is not a rookie.
Second year, then
Sure.
fine. We'll just throw him in there for the fun of it.
Yeah.
How many of those four do you think make first team to start the season?
Okay, going over that again. So you said Stephon Diggs, TJ Clemmings, Trey Waynes, and Anton Exum?
No, Clemmings, Waynes, Kendricks, and Exum.
Oh, Kendricks. Yeah, that makes more sense than Diggs. How many of them are going to start?
Yeah.
I think if I were to choose a probability distribution, I would say 3. But if I were to choose the particular players, I would say 2. I think that if you added up all the probabilities, it would probably add to 3, right? Like you've got a 75% chance to start, you've got an 80% chance. I think that would add up to 3, or would round to 3. But I think if I were to pick people in particular, I think Kendricks starts, and I think Exum starts. The reason I don't select Waynes, even though he's a first-round pick, is that it's actually kind of rare for first-round pick cornerbacks to start the first game of the season. That happened sometimes due to injury, like Drake or Patrick. That happens all the time. Jason Verrett didn't start for the Chargers. He's probably the best rookie cornerback from last year. Justin Gilbert didn't start. I think Kyle Fuller was the only one who started. That sort of stuff. And so it's not that Waynes won't start because I have a low opinion of him. I think that he'll end up starting by the end of the year. I think that Waynes won't start because it is in fact a difficult position to learn, and rookie cornerbacks just do not tend to start. He's also on the second team right now. Again, same caveats. Harrison Smith was, Kendricks is right now. Anthony Barr was for a very short period of time. But yeah, I think that's the only reason I didn't select Waynes. I think Clemmings. I think eventually. I still sort of trust the talent of David Yankee. I think eventually the inexperience of Clemmings is going to outweigh the tantalizing potential of having a player of his caliber on the team, and so they're going to redshirt him for a year, and then they won't have to draft a left tackle if Matt Khalil turns into what he was last year. So I think Clemmings isn't going to start because I think they want him at swing tackle, so they're going to have Yankee and Fusco at the starting guard positions. I think that's a long shot. I think that I know I'm choosing basically against what Vegas would have if Vegas were to put odds on this sort of minute detail. But yeah, I would not have Clemmings start. Maybe that's just because this is my preferred plan and I'm not clued into what their preferred plan is. But I don't have much information anyway, so that's that.
Well, all right. The Vikings, the organization and players, along with Toro and Kaboom, held the organization's 10th annual playground build and school visit, sort of, after thunder and lightning chased the involved players back to the buses. Is womp womp. But the players hung out with the kids and high fives, photos, autographs, all that stuff.
Right.
Inspirational speeches, par for the course. Mm-hmm. Is this considered like part of OTAs, or is this just something that the Vikings do on top of that, like an extracurricular or like extra credit activity that you can engage in?
When I saw this in the mailbag, I was like, that actually brings up an interesting philosophical point, which is a voluntary activity part of another voluntary activity? If they occur at the same time and tend to comprise the same group of people. And
yeah, well, exactly. If you go to OTAs, do you have to go to this?
Well, but you don't have to go to OTAs. So if you go to OTAs, you can just refuse to participate in part of it, right? Like, just let's put the playground question out. Like, if you go to OTAs, you can like refuse to participate in a part of OTAs.
Like if you don't want to do like explosion drills, or if you don't want to do like passing drills or whatever, you could potentially just be like, I'm just gonna go to Burger King. I'll be back.
Yeah, I mean that would make you like an enormous asshole, and maybe you are barred from coming
I
back. But
it's
like,
probably like one of those things that you could do that wouldn't be illegal, but that you would never want to do because it would cost you like all of your social capital.
yeah, exactly, right? Um, and so that question, you can sort of apply that the same kind of reasoning to this extracurricular activity of volunteering and hanging out with kids and generally being like a good person without any cost to you. um, yeah, right. Like if you go to OTAs and they're like, "Hey, Teddy Bridgewater, you're the face of the team. We would love it if you could help build a playground with like Phil Lodeholt and Chad Greenway and like 8,000 kids that look up to you." Like Teddy can just say no. He shouldn't, but he can, right? So, I mean, is it part of OTAs? If every part of OTAs is voluntary, and that too is voluntary, I think the only answer is that we have a definitional thing for OTAs and contracts, and that workout bonuses are contingent on OTAs, and workout bonuses cannot be contingent upon your showing up at a community event. So no, it is not part of OTAs.
Aha! I knew that I knew that somebody had written it down somewhere. Some lawyer had clearly made the
Yes,
distinction.
because it's an important distinction to make.
Well, it is. I mean, that's what lawyers are for, to make every possible distinction, no matter how fine. And that is why they get paid so much money.
Because they
Well,
write the
that
contracts.
with themselves, and sometimes America. Oh boy. That's about it for original content, I guess,
Good Lord. All
this
right.
week.
No, that's great.
Well,
Short show.
hey, Purple for the Win did the all the Vikings quarterbacks ranked in order, which
Whatever.
the
That
amount
was
of
awesome.
preparation that must have gone into that is mind-boggling to me.
I hadn't heard of some of these guys. I was like, wow, Andy, that was all right. That was impressive.
This is serious business. Like I said, I would love to know how much time he put into that. Actually, maybe I wouldn't. I'm gonna think about it less. It's okay. We luckily have a dedicated core of listeners who not only give us money but content for the show whenever there isn't any.
Oh, thank God.
Shall we take a look?
Do
Logan
we do we have
Mironov
to play
Chin.
the Pee Wee Herman mailbag thing?
Oh, we should.
Well, that's up to you to get the audio for them.
Yeah. Yeah, why not? It's not public domain, but whatever. If somebody that works for Viacom listens to this show, we'll deal with that when it happens.
Okay. This feels like a very shock jock approach to copyright protections.
Well, yeah, look, I mean, for anyone who cares, our show is Creative Commons licensed, and you can use whatever content you want out of it as long as you attribute it to us, or at least, mention the words Norse and code in a sentence in
I
the.
mean, I would hope that Norse and code are juxtaposed in this sentence. They comprise one mass noun.
That's fair.
Yeah.
At any rate, as long as you mention that you got it from Norse code, you can use whatever audio you want, any clips that we play or whatever. That's
So
fine.
then we can steal other audio because we let you do that.
Yeah, basically, that's my feeling. It's just like I'm trying to bring the rest of the world in line with us, and if Viacom doesn't want to go, well, then I will help drag them.
All right. We'll talk to those lawyers who write contracts in a couple of weeks, I guess.
Now those are different lawyers. Speaking of contracts, Logan Mironov Chin writes us, quarterback contract inflation is absurd. In parentheses, untenable? Question mark. Think it'll stop/reverse before Teddy's needs doing? No.
Well, okay, so another definitional problem, not nearly as stupid or as abstract as the OTA one. Uh, I am not so sure we can have a good definition of quote unquote when it'll stop. Because I don't think a mid tier quarterback is going to end up getting a lower contract than the one Cam Newton signed. And so, but that doesn't mean that contracts will continue to accelerate at the same pace, which is technically, what inflation means, right? But I think that we're already seeing it stabilize a little bit. So no, I don't think it's gonna reverse by any means. I think that Johnny Manziel and the draft in general, and sort of the dearth of talent of quarterbacks between the ages of like 30 and 26, which is kind of surprising. There's like a whole like generation basically in terms of NFL generations. It's a whole generation of like quarterbacks that no one will ever think of as elite, um, unless you count Joe Flacco. Um, which is super weird. We've got a bunch of really old elite quarterbacks and a bunch of really young quarterbacks that are going to be elite and like no one in the middle. And so I think that demonstrates the problem that it is super hard to find quarterbacks, that it is harder to find quarterbacks than it was before. And I think I contradicted this point in a previous show. Forget what I said. Um, I think that the perception that there's not a lot of quarterbacks, that they're difficult to find, and that college is not producing quarterbacks at the rate that we're losing them or potentially losing them, means that teams are just too scared to let go of a quarterback that you could see getting you into the playoffs. Obviously, you could see Colin Kaepernick and Andy Dalton getting you into the playoffs. They did that actual thing. And so Colin Kaepernick gets his contract, which again, way team friendly, incredibly team friendly, because he just loses millions of dollars every time he doesn't make the All Pro team or the Super Bowl, which is every year. So whatever. Um, Andy Dalton's contract, which is in between team friendly and incredibly gaudy for a mediocre quarterback, is somewhere in between the two. Um, And we're going to see the Russell Wilson, Andrew Luck contracts pretty soon. Those are going to be way better than Cam Newton's contract is. And I think teams are scared that if they have a top 20 quarterback, not even just like top 15, if they have a top 20 quarterback, they're scared to lose them because it is hard to find a top 20 quarterback because the top 20 that we have, 15 of them have been around for a while. And so it's hard to crack the top 20 with a new quarterback. You're more likely to have a quarterback sort of phase out than you are to get one into that top 15 until these quarterbacks start retiring, in which case the top 20, what does that mean? Now that all of the good ones are gone, we didn't replace them with other good ones. Um, Cam Newton hits the market instead of signs his contract. I would not be surprised if he got an even better deal than the one he ended up signing. So no, I don't think we're going to see it as something where sustainability is going to cause problems for the way teams built, their rosters. I don't think we're going to see a change in terms of the numbers that we see, and I think that we'll continue to be overwhelmed by the by the total number we see, and then underwhelmed by the specifics of the contract. Which you cannot demonstrate that any better than the Colin Kaepernick contract, but the Andy Dalton contract also, the total number was way out of line with what was actually in the contract.
So, do you think that the Russell Wilson slash Andrew Luck ticket punch slash contract extravaganza is going to put upward pressure on quarterback prices in general, or are teams going to be able to look at, maybe somebody who could potentially crack the top 20 and be like, no, those numbers are reserved for Russell Wilson and Andrew Luck, and you are neither Russell Wilson nor Andrew Luck?
I think it is. I think it is the second. I think we're going to see two enormous contracts in very short order because of those two, and the people are going to be like, "Oh my God, you can't afford to get quarterbacks in this league anymore. Just get rookies," which is actually literally the problem that people have and the reason that you can't get quarterbacks. Um, I think that people are just gonna be like, look, Russell Wilson has been to two Super Bowls. He won one of them. Maybe by the time he signs the contract, he'll have won another. Who knows? And people will talk about how that defense is so good that it won the Super Bowl, which is absurd considering you just watch Andrew Luck play. He plays very well, or Russell Wilson play. He plays very well. Andrew Luck is in the opposite situation where he wins in spite of his team, um, and very obviously. And statistics are clearly not favorable towards Andrew Luck as they are for Russell Wilson, and so there's always going to be that debate. How good really is Andrew Luck? But the point is, people think that Andrew Luck is one of the great young quarterbacks, particularly the Colts. And so, because people think that, that is the money he will get. The debate about whether or not Andrew Luck is as good as people say he is, I think, is independent of the debate about whether or not someone else can get an Andrew Luck type deal by being a top 15 or top 20 quarterback. And I think the answer is no, because I think the perception of Andrew Luck is that he's very good, and that he's working not just in spite of his teammates and in spite of that defense, but also in spite of like his offensive coordinator or whatever. So yeah, I think the perception that Andrew Luck is very good is not a perception you'll apply to sort of the next round of quarterback contracts. So yeah, I think we're going to see a huge spike when those two sign their deals, and then we're going to see more Andy Dalton, Colin Kaepernick, Cam Newton deals if we see more deals. So yeah, Teddy Bridgewater's probably going to get something in between an Andrew Luck deal and like a Cam Newton deal. Hopefully closer to the Andrew Luck deal.
Well, he won't get an Andrew Luck deal because, as far as we know, Teddy Bridgewater doesn't play football for a pill-popping cash flasher.
Yes.
It's
I don't know
an
that the
X
pill
factor that
popping
we
cash
cannot.
flasher actually does the negotiations, but you know.
Nah, I imagine they try to keep him as far away from that as possible.
No, instead we
Here's
have
another suitcase full of pills, Jim. Just go do whatever it is you do.
with a suitcase full of pills. Just please don't do it in a
Here's
car.
a, here's a bottle of Johnny Walker Blue. Just let someone else drive.
Instead, we get the felon who's been indicted on multiple real estate deals for wanting too much money and doing business a little too well, running our team. So I guess with that in mind, Teddy's contract is going to look a little bit better.
No, I'm hoping that he ends up with Russell Wilson like numbers because we win the Super Bowl next year. But
It's
that's
a generous interpretation of Russell Wilson's numbers.
well, okay. Well, yeah. Well, we'd have to get to the Super Bowl again the year after that and then lose, right?
What? I think Vikings fans can handle that.
That's fair. Matt Nelson, donor and friend of the show, at nmat71 on Twitter, writes us: Is it true that Dusty is juicing to improve his workouts? I think he's worried about the island. The island? Is that a is it a Survivor reference? Is it a reference to the movie The
I
Island?
think it's a reference to the movie The Island, but I'm not sure. That's the first thing that showed up in my head. Wait, that's the Jean-Claude Van Damme movie, right?
I thought it was Jude Law.
What is it?
The
Both?
science fiction movie, The Island. I think they're two different movies. They're both named The Island.
Okay, I'm googling The Island right now. Well, how did we not come prepared for this mailbag? Well, also there's NBC's The Island. Maybe it's a reference to the NBC show.
At any rate, no, I am not worried about the island, whatever permutation you were thinking of it. And the only juicing I do involves kale and occasionally pineapple. I tried to juice a pineapple. Not a good idea unless you have a pretty sturdy juicer.
Good Lord, you're a hippie. Yeah, I'm pretty sure this is a reference to the NBC show. 14 American
Oh.
men are marooned on an uninhabited Pacific island with only a handful of tools in their wits. Will these 21st century men rediscover their primal instincts and band together to survive?
Didn't they do that show before and it was called Survivor?
Do they get voted off?
Is
They'll make it
that,
different than Survivor if they don't get voted off.
that was like the whole hook. Like, this just sounds like tough to watch. I don't know.
Man, I watch survival dystopia all the time. I would love this. Well, it's NBC, so I probably won't. But I watched The Colony, which is an amazing reality show that they canceled because it was like obviously way too dangerous and you can't do that to people. But
No one would insure them anymore. They're like, no, not even Lloyd's of London.
yeah. Well, I mean, when it got to the point where in the first season, the people from The Colony had definitely homemade their own flamethrowers and were using them against the extras that they hired to pretend to be like savage outlaws to us. Because the people in The Colony eventually started believing the reality show that they were in, because that's the way the show was set up. Like they like psychologically tortured them, except they had a confessional booth.
Well, and the Stanford experiments show that people will just like do that.
Yeah. Well, so they just like believed they were in the apocalypse, and you could see this on the show as like the episodes progressed. Their confession booth interviews, it became less and less cognizant of the fact that there was a camera in front of them, and they kept on talking as if they were in the apocalypse. And so But the problem is they made the premise of the colony is that we have gathered like these 10 or 16 or however many people together, put them in a warehouse and said it's the end of the world, and you don't get any like electricity or plumbing or whatever, just deal with it. The problem with season one is that they gave them like way too many engineers. There were like 5 engineers in that group, and so they survived beautifully. They were like, "Oh yeah, obviously you can just make clean water. Here's like charcoal and sand, and we just made a water distiller. That's amazing." And they made like an avgas wood burner to generate electricity, which is not something that people in the show anticipated at all. They created like these homemade solar panels, and then they made a flamethrower because part of the show was that they would have people attack the complex, and the engineers were just like, whatever, we'll just make a flamethrower.
That'll slow them down.
Yeah, and so the people who make the show and hire the extras have people attacking, and the extras are not allowed to hurt the people on the show, right? That's like
While they're being assaulted with a flamethrower.
right, and so like you clearly can't have the show. But by the time the first season aired, the second season was in production, and so they canceled the third season, and they allowed the second season to happen. And the second season was a huge disaster because there were like no engineers because they were like, well, we can't have that problem again. We can't have people like fix the problems we give them.
So then they just had a bunch of people who were incompetent problem solvers and had no experience with like survival type stuff.
Yeah, they were actually about to die until they sent a Marine in. Season two is great because they were like, oh my god, these people are screwed. And so they sent an actual survival specialist, a Marine, halfway through the season to fix it.
That sounds way better than the island. Although, you know what? If it could get me on a show like that, I would consider juicing.
Right. So I'm just saying I watch these kinds of shows all the time, and I feel like the island could get a so long as there's nobody voting off and there's no obnoxious host. Like I think that's the thing that turns me off.
As long as there's no Jeff Probst.
Right, exactly. Because then you break the illusion for these guys. I want them to believe they're on a deserted island and have to survive.
Do you want to have their like slow descent into madness captured on film?
Yeah, I mean,
In
I
the
watched
confession
Kid
room?
Nation, right?
That's fair. No, I would consider juicing, but I mean, I just simply do not share Tom Brady's affinity for deflated balls, or I would be.
All right, next question.
Isaac Huntley at Mullet Ike on Twitter asks us, Apple or Android?
This is a boring question. Android, I guess, but I don't really hate
Yeah.
Apple users.
Android.
Yeah.
I have rolled my own hardware and been dicking around with software for years, and so the modular and less kind of walled garden nature of Android appeals to me. I can see people appreciating Apple if they're heavily invested in the iOS ecosystem. If you have like all Apple devices or you've all your stuff backed up to iCloud or lots of music on iTunes or whatever, fine, that's fine. And I get that Apple has, I guess, more evolved views about storing user data and encryption and that sort of thing. For now.
For now. It's just because Apple doesn't have the server farm that Google does. If Apple had that server farm, they totally would just store all
Well,
of
and
it.
that's not like Apple's business is to sell you hardware. They want to sell you more, shiny crap with round edges.
Well, until they like release, Gala, their search engine or whatever. I don't know. I just chose a species of Apple and made that their search engine name.
Whatever that is, it's going to be crap. No one can compete with Google because Google just has all this massive like treasure trove of information from all of its users, and it puts a lot of it to work. And
But
maybe not
Apple
necessarily.
is so close to having that treasure trove of information.
But
Apple will
the
be corrupted, let me tell you.
and I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying that Apple might try, but they'll do it badly because their software hasn't been as good as their hardware for a while. I mean, they make much more money on the hardware, and Android is just Google has lots of experience dealing with this stuff, and at least they give you something for all of your precious personal information. At least they give you all those cool Google services. I mean, a lot of parts of the show, like we rely on Google Drive to transfer files back and forth for the show.
That's true.
We rely on Google Hangouts to pretty much organize all of our, Norse code operations that don't happen on Skype. Like it's great. I'd sell my soul to the Googleverse.
Right.
So.
I am paying Google to store my data, so yes. They would also store other kinds of data were I not to pay them, so whatever, I guess.
It's true. Just less of it.
Yeah.
Josh Bjork at Iowa_Josh sends in a couple of questions. I know one of you guys is a Newton fan. Yeah, I love Fig Newtons. But overpaid or grossly overpaid? Yes, Fig Newtons are outrageously expensive. By far the most expensive cookie.
I actually did not look at the details of Cam Newton's contract. I saw $100 million, and I was like, well, whatever. I don't care.
Yep, that's a big number.
Yeah, right. It was like, I mean, but it's not the contract's detail. I don't know what the details are. I'm gonna take a look at them right now. Okay, that's not useful. 22. So wait, what's the life of the deal? Oh my god, no one told me how long the deal is. I'm in the article. They're not telling me how long this deal is. How am I supposed to evaluate $100 million contract if it could be over 10 years? That would be an amazingly good deal.
It's when this random number generator reaches zero, Cam Newton gets $100 million.
Oh, holy shit, it's a 5-year deal.
Oh,
That is surprising, actually. I thought it was like a 6 or 7 year deal. Well, that changes things a little bit. So $22.5 million signing bonus, $7.5 million roster bonus due this week. So functionally, that's also guaranteed. So that's $30 million guaranteed plus $1 million in base salary. So okay, so it's only
did you say
31.
$25 million signing bonus?
22.5.
22.5? That is a lot of money.
Yeah, but it's prorated in terms of the cap. So
Okay.
I mean, he gets all the money at once, right? Which is why his base salary this year is only $1 million. Um,
It's just structured so that the team can avoid, having to take a gross cap hit one year and then try to run around and restructure it for the next year.
right, and so the prorated hit uh, is 4.5 million a year. So if in the fifth year of the deal, the final year of the deal, they don't like him, they can cut him, and it'll only cost them $4.5 million in cap. Um, it sounds like none of his deal is fully guaranteed except the signing bonus, roster bonus, and the first year's salary, which again is only $1 million. So 31 million guaranteed, whatever. In March 2017, he'll have 60 million guaranteed for injury, which that is pretty high. Or so he has $60 million guaranteed for injury. So if he gets injured and he can't play, he gets $60 million, and that'll count against their cap. But that money is fully guaranteed in March of 2017. I don't know if that is an additional 60 million, in which case that's overpaid by kind of a lot, or if it's an additional 30 million on top of the 30 million that he has guaranteed, in which case this is actually a fairly reasonable deal.
So we can agree not grossly overpaid, but depending on how things shake out, possibly overpaid.
Correct. I don't know. Cam Newton's like pretty good. He's a top 15 quarterback with the potential to be more than that. I don't think that the offense they're designing for him is a good offense that they're designing for him, and I don't think that the roster that they're building around him is a good roster that they're building around him. That's not really his fault. He overthrows guys, that's true. He has massively improved his pocket presence. He has improved his accuracy at least a little bit. I think that he does enough in terms of reading the field, and I think that he does just enough in terms of accuracy that sort of everything else that you get with Cam Newton makes him a top 15 quarterback, and you can always make the playoffs with a top 15 quarterback.
Josh's other question, could Zimmer be better at coaching this year? We often talk about players getting better with time, but not coaches.
No question. And not because, like, oh, people improve. What a dumb question. More because there are things that we know that Zimmer are not good at, that he could learn to be good at. And I think that those things are things like time management. I think that those things are how assertive he wants to be with his coordinators slash his coordinator, North Turner. So I mean, obviously, having Turner as your coordinator, you'll naturally be fairly deferential to a person with his resume and experience. And I think that as the season wore on, he sort of asserted himself a little bit more in that process, and that helped the team out. I think that that's sort of one quote unquote mistake that he made that he can correct this year. I think that the issues with managing timeouts and managing the end of game. I think that he can improve that. I think that he is doing a better job of trying to figure out, when people were talking about scenarios that Spielman and Zimmer went over and put together, basically training him for end of game situations, things like that. I think he'll go over that. I think he'll get better at fourth down management. And I think that there's the other half of it is the stuff that I sort of dismissed, that he'll naturally improve because he's a coach that has the ability to naturally improve, and I think the defense will improve because of it. So, yeah, I think Zimmer could be better at coaching, and I think that he'll get better at coaching, which is great because he's already a pretty good coach, we think.
Bradley Smith at B24 Smith writes us, enjoy show. Well, I am so far. Oh, you enjoy the show. Oh, okay. Well, thank you, Bradley.
You're a dick.
What? He just said enjoy show.
He only has 140 characters.
So I did. Yeah. He is wondering if, well, whatever. I'll just read it as written. I can't change the pronouns. Wondering if you think we will see more 3-4 defensive packages this year in Zim's arsenal.
No. We didn't actually see that many 3-4 packages in Zim's arsenal last year. We're not going to see them this year that much. He didn't do them that much at Cincinnati, even when he had personnel that was better suited for it than the Michael Johnson, Carlos Dunlap duo he had at defensive end. No, it's just I don't think it's a thing. I don't think he likes that as a defensive alignment, because I think that he cares more about defensive ends setting the edge against the run. And sort of the further you split away from that to turn those guys into outside linebackers makes it more difficult for those defensive ends or pass rushers or edge defenders to set the edge, and replacing that with another person on the inside I don't think accomplishes the same goals. He has particular gap concepts in mind. He has particular linebacker gap concepts in mind that work for 4-2-5 and 4-3. 4-3-4 defenses, and I just don't think we'll see that many 3-4 packages, because he doesn't particularly like them, even though he has had run 3-4 defensive packages in the past on other teams.
Henrique Melin at Henrique Mels writes us, much praise for our coaching staff. Where would you rank them compared to the rest of the league?
Off the top of my head, probably top 10 easily.
Now, is that controlling for coaching staffs that are entering their first year, like first year coaches with new teams, or coaches that have big coordinator shakeups or anything? Because Zim is coming back with pretty much the same staff he had last season, right? I mean, there can't be too many teams. I would say there's probably only 20, 25 teams in the NFL that are doing that.
Yeah. So when I said off the top of my head, I wasn't correctly evaluating any of the other coaching staffs. And so in terms of controlling for coaching staffs that have a lot of shakeup, or coaching staffs that are entirely new, I don't do the Evan Silva thing where I put new guys at the bottom immediately. I remember I saw a lot of coach power rankings where Zimmer was at the bottom because he was new, and therefore we don't have information on him, which is super lazy.
Just an unknown quantity and therefore zero?
Yeah, unknown quantity should be slightly below average, incidentally, because a new coach is more likely to be below average than he or she is to be the worst in the NFL. I don't see the logic there. But also, we also do not have no information on these guys. They've had long careers. I know that defensive coordinating and head coaching are not the same thing, and that they do not have many skills that cross over to each other. But it is kind of absurd to think that there is zero crossover, and that we've heard anecdotal reports about who Mike Zimmer is, right, and when he was new, and a lot of those anecdotal reports turned out to be true, and he turned out to be a good coach because of those qualities that we suspected he had. So no, it's not controlling for new staffs or anything like that. But for the most part, I think that it is difficult to find the combination of coaching traits that Zimmer has, which uniqueness isn't necessarily good, but in this case it is, because he is good, and he's good in ways that are difficult to replicate. I don't think he's as good as Bill Belichick and that coaching staff. I think that
they've got to be number one, right?
Yeah, I can't think
prohibitively
of better. Yeah, I think prohibitively. I think it's difficult. I think the race is for number two, right? Um, I don't know what to think about the Packers coaching staff because it's weird and difficult to extract from the play of their quarterback. But I would say they're probably pretty good. I would say that the Seattle coaching staff is up there in the number two fight. There's a lot, and I wouldn't say that Zimmer is necessarily in that conversation for the top five. I think the dark horse for the top five would maybe be Arians and his coaching staff, Bruce Arians with the Cardinals, solely because of
Arizona.
the performance last year. With three,
Maybe throw in Philly and I guess maybe Denver. Round out your top five, or round out five competing for number two.
yeah, I would definitely throw in Philly.
Denver's different now without John Fox. I don't. They
Yeah,
we'll relegate them to slightly below average
yeah,
until they prove us wrong.
right. So yeah, who is Denver's head coach right now? It's Kubiak, right?
Yeah, Gary Kubiak.
Yeah, I would put him below average without. That's
But,
not a new coach thing.
but
I
me
would
and
put
John
him.
Elway are buddies.
Oh, great!
Such good buddies.
Didn't
They
Kubiak
played
back
together
up
in
John Elway?
college.
Wasn't that the thing? Wasn't he John Elway's back?
Backed him up in college and then coached him in the pros.
That is awesome.
Yep.
And now John Elway is his boss.
Once you were the teacher, now I am the master.
Wait, they kind of reversed twice. Can't really use this.
It's true. They said it to each other, and then they made out.
Oh,
No, that's
Coobs.
true. That would never happen. John Elway's horse teeth would get in the way.
And John Elway is like the most conservative FO in the. Anyway, John
And
Elway is
he's
very
not just
Republican.
his
That's all
breath.
I'm saying. Um,
That's true.
yeah, I would not put the Denver coaching staff in the top five. I think the conversation for below average. Yeah, so
Well, then who else? Maybe like Indy.
so
Not San Francisco anymore.
well, no, you're right. No, I don't know if I'd put Indy there. I would say that so dark horse was Arians, super dark horse, like dark horse, the Detroit coaching staff. Because man, did they turn that around? And Terrell Austin is phenomenal. I'm just gonna put that out there.
That's fair.
But yeah, so it'd be like Philly and New England and Seattle are probably, it's difficult to touch them. Bruce Arians is in there too. So I would say that Zimmer is like probably top eight.
Like one tier below that, competing for the number 3 or 4 spot.
I think he's competing for a number six
Or
spot.
yeah, because they would all have to fall.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he's below all those teams. I see.
Yeah,
I see.
right.
Okay. Canary Yellow at Kevin Sayer, another friend of the show, writes us, whilst AP makes us better, does his arrival
Oh my
does his
God.
arrival diminish Teddy Bridgewater's progress? In other words, will Teddy Bridgewater be reduced to the role of a handoff machine? Will Norv keep the offense balanced?
Norv has had some astounding running backs in his career. He has kept the offense balanced, so I'm not worried about that.
I seem to remember LaDainian Tomlinson getting a lot of carries when Phillip Rivers and Norv Turner were working together in San Diego.
Yeah, it turns out.
And Phillip Rivers also managing to throw the ball a lot
Yeah,
when LaDainian Tomlinson was the running back and Norv Turner was the coach in San Diego.
yeah. And then there's also the Emmitt Smith, Troy Aikman. Not as relevant given that was like in 1993. Although one would argue that if that offense was balanced, then I think the 2014 version of an offense like that would be even more "quote unquote" balanced, even more pass happy is what I'm saying. But then also, I mean, there's even smaller versions of it, like with Frank Gore and Alex Smith. I mean, Alex Smith was clearly the worst quarterback of all of these good running back situations, right? That offense was fairly balanced. So I don't think that that's an issue in terms of whether or not the offense will be balanced. Whether or not it'll diminish Teddy Bridgewater's progress, I think marginally. I think that as a coach, you have two competing goals, right? You have one goal which is to develop all of the individual players, and the other goal which is to win, and those goals will clash with each other. The goal of developing Teddy Bridgewater is best met by passing sort of as often as possible. Whenever you're in a situation where you could either run the ball or pass the ball with sort of equal effectiveness in your mind. Maybe you would pass a little bit more often than 50-50 in that situation. Maybe you pass it 75-25 in order to develop Teddy. But I think when you have Adrian Peterson back there and you have a competing goal of wanting to win as often as possible, I think you run the ball a little bit more often, right? And so I think that it will diminish Teddy Bridgewater's progress, but like not in a way that I'm like worried, right? Like not in a way that I think, like I think if Teddy Bridgewater had a ceiling of being Peyton Manning, and he was on track to being Peyton Manning, right? I think that this would make him still probably Peyton Manning. Like, it's not an issue. Like, if he and Peyton Manning had a duel off with identical teams, and when Teddy reaches his full potential, and his full potential is Peyton Manning, the fact that Adrian Peterson was introduced early in his career would make him like win 49 instead of 50 out of 100 games, right? So it's not an issue.
Well, and I feel like it might add to his longevity a little bit.
Yeah, it is true that he's less likely to get hit in that situation.
The unit at HypeSolo1253 on Twitter writes us, if AP retired today, would he be a top 5 running back of all time?
So the top running back of all time question is always interesting to me because we have a bunch of running backs from like 1980 to 2000, and then one running back from 1950. Right? We've got like Jim Brown, then we've got Walter Payton, Barry Sanders, and then for some people, Emmitt Smith. And I'm definitely missing a big one. Who am I missing? That's not Adrian Peterson. Do you know who I'm missing?
No. Of all time?
Yeah. Like, because there's like a very clear like tier, whatever. Okay. Yeah, a lot of O.J. Simpson. I think is probably the 1970s running back you want to include into that list. I think if you want to include someone besides Emmitt Smith, Barry Sanders, Walter Payton from like the night. Well, Walter Payton was in the 90s. But if you want to include someone else from the 90s, you could include Terrell Davis. I don't think he ends up on the top all-time list for longevity reasons. You could include Eric Dickerson. I don't know. That doesn't feel right to me. Yeah, I think that, and then LaDainian Tomlinson and Marshall Faulk are in the conversation for the top 5. I think that Adrian Peterson as a running back is definitively not as good as Barry Sanders or Jim Brown. I think that O.J. Simpson was also probably better.
Were you thinking of Bo Jackson?
No, he didn't live long enough. He didn't run long enough.
He's not dead.
He's not dead yet. And he's shockingly happy about that fact. We've talked about how well-adjusted Bo Jackson is and how, like, unadjusted this makes us. Like, we've done this in the past.
At any rate.
I think he's probably better than Walter Payton, right? Which means he's obviously in the top 5 conversation, right? Yeah, like, who would you put above Adrian Peterson besides O.J. Simpson, Barry Sanders, and Jim Brown?
I mean, I'm biased towards players that played while I was alive.
You so asshole!
I know I'm a terrible person, but I mean I would put Adrian Peterson on the same page as like Emmitt Smith and maybe Barry Sanders. I know you're a big Barry Sanders guy.
Barry Sanders is better.
But Jim Brown, I don't know. I guess. Well, to me, the most compelling argument for AP being in the top 5 is just the sheer number of records that he holds at this point. And I know that doesn't play very well across eras, but I mean,
it's not.
I think you can use that information to say that he is completely dominant over everybody else that plays that position today. No one that plays today is as close to Adrian Peterson at his best. Even Adrian Peterson is probably not as good as Adrian Peterson at his best.
Wait a minute, no one's as good as themselves at their best.
But no,
decent wins.
anyone else at their best would still not even touch Adrian Peterson at his best. We know that because he broke almost all the records in 1 year.
He finished the year, the final 8 games, he averaged 7.8 yards a carry.
Yeah,
That's an
exactly. Like
obscene number. I can't. My mind cannot cognize that number.
just that kind of dominance, I think alone makes him, gives him a little boost in the all time rankings. And I think that's the sort of thing that gets lost when you start comparing him to Jim Brown.
What do you mean? I mean, Brown had that dominance.
Yeah,
There's no touching Jim Brown's dominance for his era. The argument against Jim Brown all time is that he was a today-sized running back in a yesterday-sized league, which I think is a dumb argument. But I mean, he had that. There's no question he had that dominance.
well, yeah, and he was playing against smaller guys. Like he would not be as, and that's whether you think it's dumb or not. That's
That's
kind
a
of the
super dumb argument.
all right.
You can't compare people aside from how they performed against the people they played. That's ridiculous. Obviously, Adrian Peterson, if he got to play against 220-pound linemen, would dominate. That no one, no one.
There you go. Then put him in the top five.
Yeah, I'm fine putting Adrian Peterson, I guess, in the top five. The question when I received it
That's all I'm saying.
made it seem a little odd to me, just because I don't know. I guess I never thought of Adrian Peterson. I thought of Adrian Peterson as definitive top 10 running back all time, no question. I don't know. I guess I didn't think of him as a top five, but I can't think of people that push him out of the top five for sure, right? So, I mean, that's a little difficult. So yeah, I get he's top five. But what I'm trying to say is, you could put Jamal Charles, right, or LaShawn McCoy, or Marshawn Lynch into Jim Brown's era, and
Yeah, and they would all crush it. Yeah,
right, and so
they would all put up Jim Brown numbers.
right, and so that's like, it doesn't make sense because you can't, like, and who's to say Jim Brown is a today-sized running back, right? Who's to say he wouldn't crush it then, today?
You mean now?
That's what I mean.
Yes. I know that, and you can't say that. You literally cannot say that because the world will never know.
Right. So
until I finish my time machine.
in fact, he's bigger than most running backs. I shouldn't even say today's size running back. He was bigger then than most running backs are now. He was 232 pounds.
Ooh, he's a tomorrow-sized running back yesterday.
He's a tomorrow-sized running back running in yesterday's league. So he was physically dominant over everybody. He would still be that.
He still is.
So yeah. 8-time first-team All-Pro, Jim Brown.
Wow. King of the Big Sigh at Scruffy the J writes us, was SI Peter King? Oh, Sports Illustrated's Peter King, the Monday morning quarterback, a little too ambitious when ranking the Vikings at 6th? He did that before the big Peterson, like, mea culpa / return into the fold, right? Like,
I'm not sure. Well, I'll take a look because
if he ranked the Vikings at 6 with no Adrian Peterson, I would say he might have been a little too ambitious then.
He put Adrian Peterson in his reasoning for top 6 for.
In that case, no.
I think so.
Really?
They had a losing record last season.
Okay, so
just said Adrian Peterson was with 1, maybe 2 wins.
6th would be what, like 9 and 7, 10 and 6? For 6th best record in the NFL at the end of the season.
Do you think the 6th best record? I'll just take a look at last season. Man, I think we're looking things up more during the podcast this podcast than we were in most podcasts.
No, that's absolutely true. We really threw this together at the last minute.
Yeah. Oh well, I mean, I think this is pretty good hashtag content, don't you?
Hashtag content. We are digital multimedia content creators. Whether we have to create it by looking it up on the internet while we're doing it, that's totally fine. We're just not a big enough operation to have an intern to do this for us.
Okay,
since you can't hear us typing.
If you had a 10-6 record, you would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10th. You'd be 10th.
Oh, in that case, yes, too ambitious. I I do not think the Vikings are an 11-win team.
Yeah, and I mean, think about the teams that are below him in the rankings. So he has Baltimore one because Peter King will always Peter King. So actually, I think that should tell us enough about this list. But two is Seattle, three is Green Bay. Notice I've not said New England yet. Four is Kansas City. Four is Kansas City. Five is New England. So there are people below Minnesota, right? Philadelphia, Denver, who I mean, who knows? Maybe Peyton Manning is healthy, maybe he's not. Arizona, Indianapolis, Dallas. I
What?
think
What?
Dallas is number 13 in his power rankings. I think that's ridiculous.
I yeah, ugh. This is ridiculous. Peter King was a little too high on inhalants when he ranked the Vikings at sixth. That's my guess.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, and I'm not saying you should rank teams according to what their record was last year. Obviously, that's absurd. But you'd have to make the argument, like you said, that the Vikings are an 11-win team. And yeah, Teddy Bridgewater improves, right? The defense improves. Adrian Peterson shows up, so the offense improves in that way. And it's really easy to seduce yourself into believing, hey, man, we just added 4 wins. But every team can do that. Every team can be
Maybe
like, hey, so Jamal Charles is healthy, or hey, Peyton Manning has both calves. That's great.
I feel like that would be true if we were playing last year's schedule again, but
It's
we're
true.
not.
This year's schedule is obscene, so there's that.
Tommy Gunn returns at Tommy the Gun 13 with a question of the big three rookie starters from last year: Teddy Bridgewater, Anthony Barr, Jerick McKinnon. Who will be most improved in 2015? I would say probably Anthony Barr.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's intuitive to say Teddy, but that's I think because he's a bit more high profile. I'm gonna say Anthony Barr. It's gonna be hard for
Because he,
Jarek
well, he was the
McKinnon.
only one that like underperformed his billing, right?
I mean, Barr
Last season,
didn't
like,
really underperform.
I didn't we at the end of the season, or didn't you say that he was good, but he didn't blow you away as much as he might have?
It might have been me. I think what I was trying to say, or maybe let me just re-say it. So, haha, you can't check me. um, Screw you guys. No, I think what I was trying to say is people thought Anthony Barr was phenomenal when he was really just very good. You know what I mean? He had a lot of foibles. He was not good in coverage. He was pretty good against the run. He was obviously very good rushing the passer. But there's a lot of things he needed to fix, and they're fixable, which is great. But I don't think he was as good as people thought he was, which isn't to say he wasn't good. I think is the point I'm trying to get across. And so, yeah, I think there's a lot of things he can improve, and I think that he has a major weakness, which is coverage.
I think you can say the same thing about Teddy, that he's not as good as the end of last season would have everybody believe. Not that he isn't good, he's just not, the the most efficient quarterback in the league by a lot.
Right, and if you were to say, if you compared Anthony Barr to all 4-3 outside linebackers, and then compared Teddy Bridgewater to all quarterbacks, right, and then used their aggregate performance for the season, I think Anthony Barr had a better season than Teddy. Teddy obviously finished better. He finished as like a top 5 quarterback. Like that was an insane run he had at the end of the season. And I would project Teddy's performance to be somewhere in between those like first 10 weeks that he played, and or first 8 or whatever weeks that he played, and the last 5 weeks, right? Somewhere in between those two. Because he played at like what 100 passer rating. He had PFF's like second graded score. His adjusted net yards per attempt was through the roof. It was like number 3 or something along those lines. I mean, he was playing out of his mind. But part of that, and I broke this down a little bit when I was talking about Matt Khalil's quote unquote improvement at the end of the season. Part of it was that the weaknesses of the Vikings were hidden better, but that doesn't mean opponents can't take advantage of the way that those weaknesses were hidden going into this year. Because remember when I was talking about the team, right? I was talking about a lot of things that the team improved, and oh my God, we're good now. But the team did not really improve their offensive line. Um, they just they're not injured, which is good. But the players who were injured, the players who are starting, didn't perform up to their standards last year anyway. So whatever. So there's like a lot of things that the team needs to improve, and I think that those things can be better exploited next year by opponents. That so that Teddy's not going to play at those top 5 level. So I think you're right. I think it's going to be somewhere between those two going into this year. Anthony Barr, I think if he improves a little bit, I think that he can be um, a, a top 10 linebacker, maybe. And I'm saying that tentatively. And I mean that between all inside linebackers and all 4-3 outside linebackers, not including edge rushers. And so, I mean, and that's a pretty crowded class of people to be in, right? Because you're competing with Levante David, you're competing with Luke Kuechly, you're competing with Von Miller, you're competing with like DeAndre Levy, KJ Wright, um, all sorts of people, right? Jamie Collins is going to be hard to beat. Bobby Wagner, Michael Kendricks. There's a lot of people that would be in that top 10. Even someone from the same class, C.J. Mosley. Uh, you know, I think that is a difficult class of linebackers to break into the top 10. But I think he has a better ability to do that, and he has more areas where he can improve. Because what he's good at, he's really good at, and what he's bad at, he needs to fix. Otherwise, he'll be a liability.
Joe Fairs at Joe Fairs on Twitter writes us, do you think any drafted players will get cut? Not even make the practice squad?
Absolutely.
A couple of them have to, right?
Yeah.
We have too many players, right?
I mean, they get 10 every year. So, yeah. Well, technically, there's only 89 players in the camp roster right now. So, who knows? But I wouldn't be able to tell you which ones they are. But, yeah, I think that you want to construct a 65 players or 63 player squad, right? 53 on the roster and then 10 on the practice squad if they keep the practice squad rules. And I think every year that happens. I think that happened to like Trevor Guyton. That happened to what's his name, Kendall James. It happens every year. I think that this year the best chance of that happening is Austin Shepard. I don't see that happening for him. I could see BJ DeBose not making it, and those are maybe the two I think most likely to not make the squad of the practice roster.
Disney movie was wrong. Not all dogs go to heaven.
Oh.
Aw. Talon T at TJohnso6 writes us, who are the starting 3 linebackers at year's end, and will they keep their roles?
So a quick note about Talon T/TJohns06. I don't think he knows this, but I have a very good friend named Talon John Powers, and this always throws me off because he has John in his Twitter handle and Talon in his like username or whatever, and I always think it's Talon John Powers.
So it's backwards, and you mistake him for your meat space friend.
Yeah, I'm just like, it's weird. But I think I think TJ Powers. I think he doesn't go by TJ. I think he goes by Talon now. I think he follows me on Twitter, so it's possible that every time I see it, it's him, but it's not. Talon went to McAllister. I think Talon T/TJohns06 went to the University of Minnesota. So hello, fellow Gopher alum. The starting 3 linebackers at year's end, I think, will be Kendricks, Barr. Probably should have led with Barr. Kendricks, Barr, and year's end. I think Chad probably will get injured again. So, Cole.
Cole?
Yeah.
Ha! Nice.
And I think Cole will not keep his role.
JP at Justin_Pullman writes us, I'd bet both sides of the ball improve a lot this year. Which will improve more, offense or defense?
Offense. Injuries to the offensive line probably won't repeat themselves as much. And the offense has further to go in order to improve. So it's easier to improve.
It's true. Our defense did most of its initial improvement last year, I think.
Yeah.
We were markedly better in almost all categories.
Yes. Absolutely.
Yinka Allende at Saxy Prince on Twitter writes us, what is Peterson's first task for off-the-field redemption?
What's that?
Handwritten notes.
Handwritten notes to every fan and
apologies
to Minneapolis fans.
Everyone. Every person in America, every child in America, every Vikings fan, every football fan. every mother, every son, every daughter.
That includes
Handwritten
the
notes.
children. Whatever. Anyway. Um,
Well, multiple handwritten notes for overlapping categories.
oh no.
Lots of notes.
I think he no longer has tasks for off-field redemption because everyone doesn't care anymore. He's on the
I think.
team. Rah rah football. Let's paper over indiscretions in the past.
Well, no, and I think that might like he kind of said as much in the press conference when he was like, I got back in the building and now I just want to like get back to work. I just want to get back to playing football, and that is where he belongs, and that is where we will judge him next. I mean, whatever off the field stuff, as long as he doesn't, do this again, as long as he correctly employs, timeouts and snack denial, then we will be able to just judge him by what he does on the field, and that'll be much easier
I hope
and
it's the
much more
most
pleasant.
brutal snack denial on the planet.
I hope he just like eats the like fig Newtons like right in front of the kid, just like, oh, these are mine now. No, 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 no.
I want him to give the fig Newton to the child, slap the fig Newton out of the child's hands without touching the child, because that's wrong, and then catch the Newton that he slapped out of the kid's hand, and then eat it in front of him. Yeah.
Run it into the kitchen, spike it into the sink, and then take it out and eat it.
And then belt it for good measure. Uh,
No, not that.
oh no, that was wrong.
No,
Sorry.
no, that's
No abusing fig Newtons.
that's the thing. Yeah.
Next mailbag question.
Uh, Joachim Ortman, Joachim Ortman. I don't know. I never know when it's spelled like that.
What were you gonna say? I never know when it's spelled funny. Was that what you were gonna say?
I mean, there's no way you can not. I'm from the Upper Midwest. There's no way that name does not look funny.
Okay, racist.
No, but names like Eric and Bjorn and Leif, those are all normal.
Those are perfectly normal, fine names.
Leif especially. What is Teddy Bridgewater's biggest flaw he needs to work on, and is there anything about his game that is genuinely worrisome?
I mean, he's not the best quarterback in the league, so that's pretty worrisome to me.
Yes.
Biggest flaw? I think that he needs to move through his reads a little bit quicker. I don't know if that's his biggest flaw. Deep ball accuracy, I think that he has not answered those questions in full. I think he's begun answering that question. And who knows? It's like difficult to sort of isolate the issues that you have with Teddy Bridgewater and the reason he's not necessarily, as good of a quarterback as people talk about when they talk about his qualities and traits. I would like to see a little bit more intelligent aggression. I think that he was a little bit too safe, not in the same way that like Christian Ponder or Matt Castle was, because that was critically safe. That was dangerously safe to the point where you would avoid an interception, and then also you would avoid the first down, and that's not good. But I think Teddy Bridgewater is willing to give up a 25-yard catch for a 10-yard catch, and you want the 10-yard catch, obviously, but you're going to want that 25-yard catch when he misses the next two, right? So like, I think more controlled aggression and combining that with like sort of deep ball accuracy and stuff like that. I think those are sort of the weaknesses that you have to watch out for him. And those are also the things about his game that are worrisome. I think that that's a ceiling on him. And I would like him to just move through his reads just a little bit quicker.
Jonathan Judich writes us at Gizankt on Twitter. Writes us with a question: what is your favorite type of cheese for a cheeseburger, and why is it Swiss?
And Dusty, this is a better question for you, but I would say Swiss cheese is a phenomenal cheese to put on a cheeseburger. It's just not
That
very
is wrong.
original. That's wrong.
Yes,
Oh my god.
Swiss cheese is far from the best cheese.
I didn't
for a
say
cheeseburger.
it was the best cheese. It's a good cheese.
It's fine.
Oh
It's
This is just
far
like the
from the
In-N-Out
best
debates I
cheese.
had today.
Oh god, those can get pretty involuted.
Yes.
In and out voluted. Ha. So I feel that there are two competing types of cheese that are best for a cheeseburger.
Like blue and not blue.
Yes. And more specifically in the not blue category, I believe that a Velveeta or Kraft single, or just like your
Oh my god, are you serious?
oil or milk based American cheese, is the best non blue cheese for a cheeseburger.
That is, you are nuts. I'd rather have a Swiss cheese than a Kraft single.
No.
Oh yeah.
Okay. First of all, it depends a little bit on the
I
burger.
was gonna say that it depends a little bit on the burger, and it depends on the toppings. I like sautéed mushrooms, and I think that Swiss goes better with that, so that might be part of it.
No, and that is true. The mushroom and Swiss burger is the way that I think everybody discovers that they love Swiss cheese on burgers, but it's not as good without mushrooms.
Or
And
secretly mayonnaise.
mayonnaise on a burger is delicious
Yes.
and provides an essential moisture barrier if you like tomatoes as well.
Oh, we talked about this with James on the show. Anyway,
I think that if you have like a high quality meat that is worth cooking to like medium or medium rare, and so you're gonna have like a juicier, thicker patty, then you gotta go blue cheese, and probably very little else in the way of toppings.
so like what Roquefort? What kind of blue cheese?
Gorgonzola,
Okay.
preferably. Cambozola, if you want to be really spendy, like a Cambozola Wagyu beef burger, spend like $40 on one meal. Go for it. It'd be delicious. If you are at like a cookout or something, and it's your uncle's like grill burgers, or you're grilling burgers, and you're not too like skilled with the grill, blue cheese may be overkill, and
Makes
probably
sense.
won't do much to blend, combine, enhance the flavor of your burger. Kraft single or Velveeta single, American cheese in general, makes up for a lot of poor preparations of burgers. You can have like this is really the only good thing about McDonald's. Like, when was the last time you had a hamburger at
What?
McDonald's?
Oh, I usually get the chicken stuff. But
Oh, well, there you
do you mean
go.
like the Big Mac?
Well, no, Big Mac has cheese. I mean, just like a straight up
Oh,
hamburger with
good
no cheese at
lord. No,
McDonald's.
I never get a burger without cheese.
Exactly. Exactly. And you know why? It's because that like slice of American cheese elevates that miserable, like horrible, sad little beef patty into something that is at least edible. It's not as good as, many of the other things on their menu. I
Okay,
tend to
so let's transition to assuming that whatever burger we've made has been made well, but we're not getting a blue cheese.
I would probably go cheddar
Yeah.
or something smoked. Like smoked
Actually,
Gruyere, smoked cheddar.
I do like the smoked. What about like a pepper jack?
I
Think
am not
it's just too cheap to get that flavor. Is that just like it's too easy to put flavor into a pepper jack? It's just peppers.
pepper jack is like it's fine, but it's like almost American cheese. It's like almost pimento cheese. Like
I prefer pimento on burgers to American.
it's delicious.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just have issues with pepper jack cheese in general. I just don't really eat much. If I want peppers, I'll actually put peppers on the burger. I don't need it. I don't need some like
I think
lame
that's a smart
suggestion of
take.
pepper in
Yeah,
my
I think that
cheese.
makes sense. I think that if I wanted peppers, I wouldn't. I would put the peppers and then I put my preferred cheese on.
Like, ooh, what this burger needs is a little bit of heat. I'm gonna put some pepper jack cheese on it, and maybe one bite will be a little bit spicy. Like, no,
Yeah, no,
come on.
I think that makes sense. Uh, yeah. So sorry, Gesankt. It's not Swiss. I think I appreciate your Swiss take more than Dusty does. That's for sure. And I think Dusty's making weird assumptions about the kind of burger. Dusty is like you should get the oiliest cheese because your burger's going to be crap. And
Or if you already have like a nice greasy burger, get a fancier cheese, so it'll add more depth of flavor. If you need a rescue cheese, American's the way to go. I'm willing to give both of you a carve out, uh, and I'll answer the question that my favorite type of cheese for a cheeseburger is Swiss, but only if there are sautéed mushrooms involved.
fair enough.
And that's my final word on the cheeseburger cheese.
But now that I've discovered we have more showtime, clarifying your final word so you can have more words.
Oh, good.
Uh, Aged cheddar. And like how much would you age the cheddar? Because you want it to be sharp, right? So you don't want it to age too much.
Uh, I was under the impression that sharp cheddar was aged more.
My bad. Other way around.
Gosh, I'm not thinking like cave aged. Like, I don't want like the little like crystals or whatever
No,
in it.
that's. I mean, I
That's
love cave
that's
aged cheddar. I don't think it works on the burger.
not on a burger. That's like putting like velvet seats in a hoopty. Like, why would you? I probably not white cheddar.
Okay.
Probably just like a 1 year, maybe 2 year aged, like a nice orange cheddar.
Nice, bright Wisconsin orange cheddar.
The more orange, the better.
You just want this to be an American again.
No, there are some English cheddars that are like almost glow in the dark orange, like deep, like almost like blood orange.
Okay, that's
And
unsettling.
any of those would be acceptable as well.
Okay, so
I mean, I want the
finally a
burger to
use
be
for English food.
because it's an American construction, but the cheese does not necessarily have to be American unless you're trying.
Let's go all the way back unless you're trying to cover up the gotcha. Thanks, Dusty.
Unless you need it to be.
I can't believe I had two burger discussions today. One of them defending the fact that I ate In-N-Out. That's dumb. Y'all are dumb.
How does that have to be defensible? Who's making you defend that?
Okay, so people have said that In-N-Out is overrated, which I can actually agree with, because In-N-Out has been like elevated to this mythic burger status when it's
It's
just
fast food.
a good burger. Right? Yeah, it's fast food.
That's fast food burger.
And
Like
so like,
that's all it is.
and so it can be both overrated and good, and a good decision, which is what it was. It was very good. I enjoyed it.
Double animal style.
Yeah, actually, that's exactly what I got. I got a double animal style. I didn't double.
That-
I didn't animal style the fries because I had to drive. But
you didn't want to wear them.
yeah.
Ruin your clothes. No, that is an excellent decision. Your in and out game is on point.
Yeah, well, we're gonna experiment with the In-N-Out to impress my girlfriend's parents. But my favorite remains the double animal style.
Yeah, once I figured out, like, I only had very limited knowledge of the off menu
Mm.
or whatever when I went, and I didn't. This was like the first time I went to In-N-Out Burger was before everybody just had the Google in their phones, and
Right.
double animal style was one of the only ones I remembered. So I was like, fuck it, let's go for it, and it turned out to be the best, sloppiest, most flavorful fast food burger I'd ever had, and like the fries. Oh my god. Wow.
All right.
So that's probably going to do it for this episode of Norse Code. Oh, wait, no, we have one more question from Delta BC Dad at Delta BC Dad on Twitter. And it says to ask Arif when I'm going to get that quarterback data. Oh, and the running back stuff is in progress with a little smiley face.
I mean, hopefully you'll get it before the season starts. I'm sorry, Delta BC Dad. I really dropped the ball on that.
It's okay, it happens. You were very busy podcasting.
Yes, just 24/7.
Just always guesting, always podcasting. You probably actually did all of Andy Carlson's research for that, Vikings quarterback ranking. That was all you. You're just being modest.
I seriously hadn't heard of some of these quarterbacks, so.
Yeah, that's what they all say.
No, I want Andy to get credit for doing a good job, because he did a good job. Andy,
That's true.
that was impressive. Also
Yeah.
impressive, the decision not to repeat that experiment with running backs, wide receivers, instead of just sticking with the top 10.
Well, I think he saw the reams and reams of data he was going to have to sort. Saw just how many people had played for the Vikings for one season and was like, well, this may take more time, more hours than exist before the beginning of the season. So
Yes, I have to
top
compare
10
like
plays.
Meweldy Moore to the running back that Bill Brown replaced.
And that, I mean, you got to scratch your head for hours over that one. That's a difficult question to answer for a lot of reasons. We may try next week, though. You'll have to tune back in to find out. Although, honestly, who knows if we'll do a show next week? It's probably going to be a sleepy week now that all is peaceful in Vikings land.
But something will happen.
Well, hopefully it's not something like trumped up, like that fake Metrodome implosion that briefly made the rounds of the internet.
What was that?
Like, I just can't even unpack that. Like, why would you even make such a thing? Who thought they were going to get away with that? And why did they make it in the first place?
Why did they make it so obvious? Like it was like the dome stayed there after whatever. I can't. Like, there's so many ways. You're right. There are too many ways to unpack it. You're right. I'm sorry. I just went on.
You can find the podcast on iTunes or Stitcher or your other favorite podcast aggregator. You can also find us at NorseCodePodcast.com, where the latest episode is always posted, along with a copy of the show notes from the Norse Code page or the appropriate Norse Code episode page on dailynorseman.com, where you can also find Norse Code. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/dailynorseman. You can tweet at Arif at ArifHassanNFL. You can tweet at me. I am at Dusty O'Connell. The show is at Norse Code DN, and our producer James has been stuffed back into his little computer box. And if you must, you may tweet him at Big Mono. While you're at the website, NorseCodePodcast.com, feel free to check out our little PayPal donate link at the bottom right-hand corner of the page. That money goes directly to paying our hosting and cloud service bills, basically just keeping the website on and keeping all the episodes up there and keeping the show ad-free so you don't have to hear us do affiliate sponsorships for Audible or say things like, hey, our sponsor Spotify is about to launch podcast support, which it is. So soon you may be able to find our show on Spotify as well. But really, you're just best off subscribing with iTunes or Stitcher or an RSS feed reader of your choice. That is, of course, once you have gone to our website and donated $5 to the cause so that we may continue bringing you the #1 podcast for your Minnesota Vikings, Norse Code. Any final words before we adjourn for an indeterminate time?
No. I think we need to come up with an even newer formula now, don't we?
Our formula is this: Christian Ponder sucks. We'll see you next week.
Norse Code is the official podcast of the Daily Norseman SB Nation blog and is produced with cooperation from Pompous Jerk Productions. Pompous Jerk Productions. Attitude with attitude. The opinions expressed in this podcast are solely those of their contributors and do not reflect official positions of the Minnesota Vikings, SB Nation, the Daily Norseman staff, or PJP. No information in this podcast should be construed as gambling advice. Please obey all local gaming laws.
Our formula is this. We go out, we hit people in the mouth.